Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. It's a beautiful morning here in Tokyo this morning. It's very warm and sunny, the air is clear and the sky is blue, and spring is in full swing. It's a great day to come to Hinokicho Park to make a video, and it's still kind of quiet here. The kids aren't all up yet and they haven't all made it to the park, so it's a good time to make a video without too much background noise or without kids jumping over me as I'm sitting here next to the pond. This morning before I came here I stopped at the local 7-Eleven store and I picked up some bread and some coffee. The coffee here in Japan that you find in convenience stores usually comes in bottles, cans, or these sealed plastic cups. And though it may not taste as good as fresh coffee, it has more of a kick to it. So if you're looking for something to wake you up in the morning, this kind of coffee really works. The walk to the park was pleasant this morning. The flowers are blooming. It smells really wonderful outside. Despite being one of the largest cities in the world, there's remarkably little pollution in Tokyo. The air is pretty much always clean. Occasionally we get a little bit of haze or smog which blows over from the mainland, but that doesn't happen so often. The streets and everything are clean. A really wonderful place to take a walk and to enjoy a spring morning. The park I'm coming to you from today is located behind Tokyo Midtown, which is the area where I happen to live nowadays. And it's famous for a couple of things. It's famous for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, which is at the top of a really tall tower. And the park behind has a bunch of wonderful cherry trees, and they are not quite in full bloom yet, but they're coming along nicely. By next weekend they should be in full bloom, and I expect next week the park will be kind of a madhouse of people coming to enjoy them. The coronavirus scare is going on around the world, but it doesn't seem to have much of an effect here in Japan. Life here seems more or less normal. There's been no panic buying, the stores are fully stocked. If you need toilet paper you can find it. Quite interesting. The only difference I notice is the fact that all the kids are out of school and running around the park every day, and that there are no Chinese or Korean tourists, and usually this area is full of tourists. We still have a lot of tourists from America and Europe and Australia, but that's about it. Usually about half of our tourists around here come from other parts of Asia, but there's none of them around today. Anyway, as I said, this park is located behind the Midtown complex, and the Midtown complex is well known for being the headquarters of the Fujifilm company and the location of the Fuji Camera Museum, as well as Fuji's Photo Museum. They have a photo exhibition held every other week or so, and it changes a couple of times a month, and every other week or so they have a different theme. It can be spring, summer, winter, fall, space, ice, flowers, nature, architecture, you name it. It's a really cool place to visit if you're in Tokyo. It's free, and not only can you look at the photos, but you can look at the old cameras which they have in their collection, and also the new cameras which are being produced by Fuji. You can actually rent these cameras and take them around the park if you want to try them out. So a pretty cool place. So I thought this would be a perfect place to do a review about a Fuji camera. And in this case it's quite an old one, a Fuji or Fujica 35EE. The E standing for electronic exposure. The Fujica 35EE was released in 1960 or 61, and it was an evolution of the earlier Fujica M and ML rangefinder cameras, with the addition of a built-in light meter and electronic exposure system. Otherwise, the cameras have the same operating system. In 1960 and 61, there's kind of an odd year from a design standpoint. This was a period around the world when the designs of pretty much all products made major changes. In America, the changes in the cars were quite evident. You went away from the rounded, huge tail fins of the 1950s to the more angular and modern designs, which became more popular through the rest of the 60s. And the same changes in design occurred to cameras. The Fujica EE is kind of an oddball looking camera, but for all that it's really interesting. The layout it was made quite convenient, and a lot of intelligence was applied to it. But if you are unfamiliar with these cameras and you pick one up, it might take you a little bit of time to figure out exactly where everything is and how it works. So let's go ahead and cover the controls, layout, and functions of the camera, starting at the top. The top is quite clean with a minimum of controls on it. The first thing you see in the middle is the hot shoe, or not hot shoe, but shoe for the flash gun. And this one doesn't come with a hot shoe, of course. And here we have the focusing and depth of field scale. So when you turn the focusing ring, the dial moves and lets you know the distance and also the amount of depth of field you have. And here we have a shutter release button. Here we have a small screw, and if you remove this screw you can find access to the vertical adjustment for the rangefinder. And here we have the light meter window, and the light meter in this one works quite good. I can see it moving as I move the camera. On the side of the camera here we have the film rewind knob, and it's set off to the side to clean up the design a little bit, and also to be able to move the viewfinder a little bit more to the left, which widens the track or the distance between the viewfinder and the rangefinder, which can improve the rangefinder accuracy a little bit. On the back of the camera we have the viewfinder window, and we have a thumb wheel for focusing. So when you turn the thumb wheel you can see the lens moves in and out, and the rangefinder focusing system in this is quite accurate and bright and easy to use. And if you're doing like street shooting and you need to quickly preset the focus, you can do it simply by looking at the focus scale on the top and moving the thumb wheel. Moving to the front of the camera we have the viewfinder window, the rangefinder window, and the window for the selenium light meter. Being it's a selenium meter, the Fujica EE does not require any batteries. The important controls, like on most rangefinder cameras, are going to be found on the lens. Since there is no focus ring on the lens, in the back here we have the shutter speed ring, which is turned by pushing this tab back and forth, and you can see the shutter speed numbers displayed in the window on the top. On the back here on this side we have the scale for film speed. To change the film speed you pull on the tab, which turns the shutter, and this allows you to adjust the film speed from I guess ASA 10 up to 200. It's not a really wide scale, but I generally shoot just 200 color film. Sometimes I like to shoot 100 color film. If I'm shooting 400 film, I would just apply a little bit of math to the exposure or settings to get it correct. On the front here we have the aperture scale, and it reads from f1.9 to f22, and it has an automatic setting set here. So when you set to auto, then you have kind of a shutter priority automatic system. So when you change the shutter speed and you are using the camera in auto, the camera will automatically select the aperture speed. When you set the camera to auto, the shutter button will pop up, and this reminds you that it's in automatic mode. Not only that, but when you look through the viewfinder, there's a small circle in the bottom of the viewfinder. When the camera is in manual mode, you cannot see this circle, but when you switch it into auto mode, the circle becomes visible. And this also serves as a warning indicator. So if there's too much light or not enough light, when you depress the shutter, a red flag will cover this window, and that means that you need to adjust the shutter speed higher or lower to get to an exposure. On the side here we have the self timer, which I recommend you never use on old rangefinder cameras. It may work today and it may stop working tomorrow, and often when it stops working it means you can't use the shutter anymore. And it's a little bit difficult to tinker with these to either repair them or remove them. Over here we have a control which says X or M. M is for the normal settings and X is for the flash sync. And right next to that we have PC sync to plug in your flash. On the bottom of the camera we have the film winding and shutter charging lever. We have the release lever, which allows you to rewind the film. And here on the bottom, in a wonderfully convenient location, is the film counter. So Yeah, that's kind of an odd location for it. You know, it's kind of difficult to take a look at the bottom of the camera every time you want to see how many shots you have left, but there it is. And then here is the tripod mounting socket, and this is a standard 1/4 inch style socket. To open the film door, you just push down on the tab here and the door opens. So quite a simple layout. Film loading is kind of the older rangefinder style system. Since the rewind knob does not pop up, there's a cutaway in the bottom to allow you to insert the film cartridges easily. You pull the film across the film, the lens window, and thread it into the slot here and turn it tight, and then wind the camera, making sure that the teeth on the spool here engage the slots on the film, and then close it, and then simply wind until you get to the number 1 on the film counter, and the camera's ready to go. These are really interesting cameras, and Fuji introduced a new lens with the EE series, the 45mm f1.9. The earlier fastest lens was the f2 lens, which came as an option on the Konica ML. And the lens is roughly the same formula, just made a little bit faster, because then as now, faster is better. And with the slower film speeds available at that time, having a faster lens allowed you to take shots with less blur and be able to capture the action a little better. But anyway, that's my review here of the Fujica 35EE. If you're interested in buying this camera or another vintage Japanese camera, I sell these in my Etsy and eBay stores. Please check the description below the video for links to my stores. I'll be posting more videos about cameras and photography soon. If you're interested, please subscribe. And thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.